Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Tea with the Druid. This is Tea with the Druid 340, brought to you by the Order of Bards, Odates and Druids. My name is Philip Cargon, and it's lovely to be with you. And we're in the new year. We've entered the year 2025. Let's see how the year unfolds. But in the meanwhile, we're here in the forest clearing together, and this time we're going to be with Dr. Steve Taylor, who some of you may remember was with us last year talking about his book, The Adventure. And Steve, he can't be stopped. He keeps writing wonderful books. And Steve, you've come up with another book, which you're going to tell us about.
Yeah, I was just saying, I'm almost as prolific as you, Philip. One day, hopefully, I will be.
Well, we both need lots of therapy, obviously, to cure us of this. But in the meanwhile, tell us about your latest book.
It's a book called Time Expansion Experiences, with the subtitle The Psychology of Time Perception and the Illusion of Linear Time. And it originated with, well, the two experiences really which led to the book. The first one was about 15 years ago when I had a mystical experience. I was walking on the Isle of Arran in Scotland. It was a very rainy evening. I was walking along a remote coastline, and I just stopped to stare at the cliffs and the sea crashing into the rocks and a few seagulls flying around. And I suddenly had the sense that the scene I was watching, it would have been exactly the same 10,000 years in the past, and it probably would be exactly the same 10,000 years in the future. And then I waited a bit longer. I kept staring at the scene, and suddenly it wasn't just an idea, but it was actually true. I felt like I was there 10,000 years in the past and 10,000 years in the future. The idea of time just collapsed or dissolved away, and suddenly the future and the past were part of the present. Time became sort of panoramic, and it was a glimpse. I felt like it was a glimpse of a kind of eternal moment, a timeless moment.
Wonderful.
And I felt this tremendous sense of stillness and oneness with a landscape. But I had another experience, a more unpleasant experience, about 10 years ago. That was when I was driving along a motorway, and I was in the middle lane, and there was a truck on the inside lane which didn't see us and tried to move out into the middle lane and clipped the back of our car. Our car started to spin round. The truck clipped us again, so we span round even faster. And it was quite a busy motorway. And I immediately sensed, wow, this is a very dangerous situation. But as soon as the truck hit us, everything went into slow motion. I was in an altered state of consciousness, and my perception became very heightened. I could see the frightened faces of the drivers behind us and the long lines of cars stretching behind us. But I was also extremely calm. I was thinking, can I do anything about this? This is very dangerous, but can I take any preventative action? So I went through a whole series of methodical actions, trying the handbrake, trying to move the steering wheel, sort of jolting the steering wheel to the left. And another strange feature was the sound became very muffled. Everything outside the car became silent. But in any case, luckily that the car veered towards the left, and we crashed into a barrier on the hard shoulder. And then it was as if time suddenly went back into its normal speed. The whole incident probably lasted 3 or 4 seconds in real time, but in my mind, it was much longer. It was probably about 40 seconds in my subjective awareness. So that experience, unfortunately, my wife and I were completely unharmed. The car was so badly damaged it had to be scrapped, but fortunately, we were unharmed. But after those two experiences, I really began to think hard about the idea of time. The experiences made me realize that time is a subjective, flexible phenomenon that varies according to our state of consciousness. So I really began to investigate that. I began to collect reports of other people's experiences, which led eventually to the book.
How fantastic! And of course, the experience of time in the mystical state is one that's, I guess, as you discovered in putting the book together, is frequently reported, and of course in the psychedelic state as well. The interesting distortions of the sense of time that occurs in in altered states of consciousness in that way.
That's right. I initially collected around 200 reports of time expansion
Wow.
experiences, as I
Oh,
called them. And
yeah.
I found that around 50% occurred in accident situations or emergency
Mm,
situations, mostly car crashes and falls, but
mm,
other emergency situations like robberies or earthquakes and a whole variety of different situations. But around 10% occurred in psychedelic experiences.
right. Okay. Okay.
Um, and I found that in psychedelic experiences, the time expansion was very drastic, very extreme.
Mm,
So that in accidents, people normally say that time expands by the order of maybe 10 or maybe about 30. So
right.
that say 3 seconds is experienced as 30 seconds or maybe up to 2 minutes.
Right.
But under the influence of psychedelics, that becomes even more extreme. So that a few seconds can seem like hours when
Yes.
you're under the influence of DMT or ayahuasca. Not
Yes.
always, but in a certain number of psychedelic experience, certain proportion of psychedelic experiences.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I remember that experience. I fell down off a balcony in New Zealand. And I fell probably 8 foot, and it was in the pitch dark, and I fell down into a sort of a hole. And luckily, the week before, it had been full of greenhouse glass, so it could have been
Oh wow!
very unpleasant. But luckily, it wasn't, and I didn't hurt myself. But it was so noticeable, the almost pleasant feeling of time slowing down. It was very, because it must have been literally 2 seconds that bang
Hmm.
like that, but it
Yeah.
felt like about 10 or 5, I don't know, 8 or something. Um, and 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 so I'm familiar with that experience. And so, apart from recounting these various experiences that people had sent in to you, what else were you able to? How did you make a book out of looking at this, basically?
There's a whole other category of experiences which I refer to as time cessation experiences.
Hmm.
And they're not as common as time expansion experiences. Time expansion experiences, around 80% of people in my research have had at least one time
Hmm.
expansion experience. But time cessation experiences are when time doesn't just expand, it actually stops altogether.
Hmm.
It's a bit like when, if you imagine a train braking and slowly decreasing its speed, and eventually it comes to a halt.
Hmm.
So it's a bit like that. Eventually, time expansion experiences and expand so extremely that they become time cessation.
Yes.
Um, and time cessation experiences usually occur in two situations.
Hmm.
They often occur in mystical experiences, like the
Yeah.
one I described at the beginning.
Yeah.
So how would you describe a mystical experience? A kind of intense, higher state of consciousness
Yeah.
in which we feel a sense of oneness with our surroundings and a sense of transcending our bodies or our normal identity. That's why so many mystics, as you said, so many mystics throughout history have talked about,
Talked about that.
the eternal now, the
Yeah.
timeless moment, but also in near-death experiences.
Aha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when people clinically die for a short period of time before they are revived. So in terms of normal time, a near-death experience lasts for a few seconds, maybe a few minutes at the most,
Yeah.
before a person is resuscitated. But those few seconds or minutes can stretch out into hours and days of
A sort of
normal
sense of
time.
entering eternity in some way. Because how did you look at how people who um, get through it have put in or experience a
Yeah.
coma? How did they experience time?
Well, it's similar. It's similar to near-death experiences. Sometimes in near-death experiences, there is a really drastic expansion of time, so that a few minutes lasts for days.
Hmm.
And in many people's coma experiences, it's similar. A person may be in a coma for a few days, but in terms of their subjective experience, it could last for, their subjective experience of time could last for years. You know,
Right. So when they come out of the coma, they think that they've been in there for years, and somebody says, "No, you've only been out for 3 days or a week." Or
yeah, that's right.
yeah,
Or they may feel that time, is not just a matter of time expanding drastically. Time actually ceases to exist. So
that's right.
that
And what about time contraction in the sense of, I remember, having an operation. You go in,
mm,
and then the next moment you're in the ward, and it's like
that's
hang on a
right.
minute, I only just arrived here. It's very
Yeah.
peculiar. Yeah.
That's a slightly different phenomenon. There are a whole variety of kind of mild variations in time perception that are caused by information processing. I deal with that in the first chapter of the book. You know
Right.
that when you go, when you're bored, for example, time tends to slow down. When you're in pain, time tends to slow down.
Yeah.
When you're in an intense state of absorption, time
Yeah.
speeds up.
Yeah.
When you have new experiences in a new environment, time goes quite slowly.
Mm.
And that's all caused by information processing, because when you go to a new place, you're absorbing lots of information, you're taking in lots of perceptions and sounds and impressions. So it all stretches
It
your,
stretches
your
it out, because I read something interesting the other day, which kind of makes sense to me, is that, as you age, a common experience is that time seems to speed up.
Hmm.
And people say the years sort of pass by them really quickly. However, if during that time, you also happen to be doing lots of different things, traveling, having new
Yeah.
experiences, then the reverse takes place.
Yeah,
So
that's
so
right.
so 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 and in my own experience, I found that sometimes I'll sort of look back and I think, gosh, that flew by. But I'll also think, my golly, it was only doing this tea with a druid once a week is very interesting for me, because
Mm.
my life is really quite varied and lots of things happen. A 1 week gap can seem like ages. It can seem like, gosh, did I only do this last Monday? It feels like
Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks ago. It's like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, it all depends on what you do. It all depends
yeah,
on whether you have any new experiences.
yeah,
If your life is very repetitious and it's full of routine, like many people's lives are,
yeah,
then time does tend to go very quickly. It's like a kind of a turntable that moves around slightly quicker each
yeah,
time.
yes, yes,
But if you can interrupt that with lots of new experiences, then, as you say, it expands time because of
yeah.
the increased number of impressions, the increased information that you're processing. I mean, I think there is another factor too, which is about conscious awareness. When you're
Mm.
consciously aware of your experience, that also tends to slow down time.
Hence, could say the value in spiritual training or in mindfulness and in meditation
Exactly.
is that you bring more
Yeah,
consciousness into your life, so you're
exactly.
kind of expanding your awareness of time.
Exactly. There's actually research showing that long-term meditators experience a slower passage of time than others.
Oh, really? How
Yeah,
interesting.
it's really fascinating.
So it's like, if you want a longer life, focus on meditating and bringing more awareness into your life, because then your life will certainly subjectively feel longer.
Yeah, and at the same time, if I mean, this will probably happen naturally if you meditate because you tend to be open and curious. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you make a conscious effort to bring newness into your life, I think it's partly because of perception, but it's also something to do with boundaries as well. What I suggest in the book is that our perception of time is linked to our boundaries, our kind of self boundary or ego boundary.
Oh, say more about that. That sounds
Yeah,
interesting.
well, all of these moments when we experience time expansion or time cessation, they
Yeah.
occur when our normal sense of ego dissolves,
Yeah.
and specifically when our normal ego boundary dissolves.
Mm.
That's why all time expansion experiences feature a different kind of spatial experience, an
Okay.
experience of non-separation, of transcending separation, feeling connected to
Yes.
your surroundings. So it's all about transcending ego boundaries. So, if
That
you, sorry,
Sorry, I mean, that what excites me about that idea is it unites a spatial concept with a temporal concept, and
yeah,
as beings, we're sort of trapped or limited by space and time. Those are the two dimensions we sort of exist in. So
yeah,
this suggests a really intimate relationship. Expand um, expand your sense of bound. If I'm hearing you correctly,
mhm.
expand your sense of boundaries, and you expand your sense of time as well. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I guess it relates to Einstein as well. Einstein brought time and space together.
Yeah.
In his block universe, that was
Yeah.
his main insight, that you can't separate time and space. Time is linked to space.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the same thing. It is when you transcend your ego boundary, you transcend your sense of separateness, and you also transcend your limitedness in terms of time. You expand your identity, and you also expand time, because, as you
Ha
say, time and space are interrelated.
how interesting. And it also another sort of a sort of a byproduct of being a bit more selfless and less self-preoccupied
Yeah,
around one's sort of egoic needs and all the rest of it is you'll get more time. You'll experience
absolutely.
more time if you just stop thinking about yourself
Yeah,
and let
that's
go.
why I suggest in my book, and people, I've said this to people, they think it's kind of strange. They can't really make sense of it. But I suggest that one way to expand time is to be altruistic,
Yeah, yeah, yes. Well, that's it. How fabulous. Yeah,
because by being altruistic, you transcend yourself, you transcend
yeah,
separateness, you connect with other people. The boundaries between you and other people and you and the world become softer,
yeah.
and that helps to expand time.
How lovely. How lovely. That's really very beautiful, actually, and I think and beautiful and hopeful, and yeah. No, I think that's very really worth deepening and really thinking on. And this is a good time to go into a meditation now. We'll put up, the links to your website and
Hmm.
your book in the notes for this broadcast. Um, and now let's go into a meditation. Would you like to lead a meditation? And
Yeah, I'll be glad
yeah,
to. Yeah,
yeah, that'd be
it would
great.
be a privilege.
Great. I shall remove myself from the stage with one touch of a button, and it's all yours.
Okay, great. Thank you. Great. So let me lead you through a meditation which will hopefully lead to a transcendence of linear time and an openness to spatial time. And also, equally, an openness to the present, because when we become present, we do transcend linear time. And then hopefully, we'll experience a timeless dimension of our own being. So let's close our eyes and settle into a meditative posture. Just for a moment, bring your awareness to your breathing, just to settle down. Just feel the sensation of the air brushing the inside of your nose as you breathe in and out. And now let's bring our awareness into our inner space, into our mental space. And let me initially lead you through a visualization. I'd like you to imagine that you're walking down a long straight road into the future. You can see one or two events that are planned for your future by the side of the road in front of you. And you can see the road stretching behind you into the past as far as you can see. You can see one or two events from your past by the side of the road. Just watch yourself walking down this long straight road into the future, away from the past, as we normally experience time. Now, way off in the distance ahead of you, you can see a soft, grey, foaming mist emerging and starting to cover the road in front of you, gradually moving closer towards you, foaming softly, covering the road, covering those events from your future by the side of the road. You can see the grey mist foaming closer towards you, closer and closer, until it's so close you can feel it softly touching your body, foaming softly around you. You can also allow it to enter your body so that you can feel the grey mist foaming inside you, through your limbs, through the whole of your body. You can feel a relaxing, warm sensation inside you as the mist foams inside you. And behind you, you can see the mist beginning to cover the road that stretches behind you, covering the events from your past, slowly enveloping the whole of the road until everywhere around you and inside you, there is only this soft, grey, foaming mist. But now, a light begins to break through the mist, as if dawn is starting to break. The mist begins to disperse, to dissipate. The light grows brighter around you, and slowly a natural landscape begins to emerge around you, beneath the mist, as it dissipates. You can see trees. You can see grass stretching in front of you, the sky, the blue sky above you. You can smell flowers and the freshness of the trees. Around you, a beautiful, panoramic, natural landscape uncovers itself, stretching all around you. And as you survey this beautiful landscape, you realize that there is no direction of time. There is no future ahead of you. There is no past behind you. There is only this panorama of the present moment, stretching all around you, without any direction ahead or behind. So as we survey and take in the beauty and freshness, the radiance of this landscape, let's let go of the idea of linear time. And remember, we can never be anywhere except in the present moment, where we are free of time. Now let's allow the image of the landscape to fade from our minds. Let's allow our minds to become empty of any images. Allow your mind to be quiet and empty. Maybe you can sense a deep aspect of your being where there are no thoughts, no concepts, where there is no identity, no sense of I, just pure, formless consciousness. Empty and quiet. And perhaps you can sense that at this deep aspect of our being, where there is no thought and no identity, there is also no time. Just for a few moments longer, let's allow our beings to rest in stillness, in pure consciousness, and also in a state of timelessness. Now, let's bring our awareness back to our breathing for a moment. Again, feel the sensation of the air as it touches the inside of your nose as you breathe in and out. Notice how slow and deep your breathing is now. And after your next breath, let's slowly open our eyes again and bring this meditation to a close.
Thank you, Steve, so much. That was tremendous and wonderfully timeless space that you evoked, and wonderfully druidic beginning. Druids are keen on mist. Yeah, mist is a big thing, and lots of the old Celtic stories.
Oh yeah,
they sort of signal a change in level. of consciousness by the mist rolling in, because you create that liminal. It's that liminal state that's evoked by the mist.
Of course, yes. That's why when I lead that meditation, people say it's quite powerful. And I think there is something archetypal about it, yeah, because of the mist, something that resonates.
That's right. And when you experience mist, I remember being in Cornwall and being up on the sort of moor there, and the mist coming out, and this sense of disorientation and really otherworldliness that happens when you experience it. Yeah, so it's a great visualization to use for helping people shift consciousness, I think.
It's beautiful. Yeah. I remember being on a beach in Scotland a couple of years ago. In the summer, there was an early morning mist on the beach. It was just heavenly. It felt like a glimpse of paradise. It just looked so perfect and otherworldly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, and keep writing.
Same to you.
I look forward to the next one, and yes, all of your books are so inspiring, and I love the bit, because you're a psychologist, it's based on a scientific worldview, but also because you're a mystic too and a poet, and you combine those two, I think, very essential aspects that we need in the world today: a spiritual understanding and a psychological understanding, and they work so well when they're married together.
Yeah. Thank you, Philip. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for being with us, and have a wonderful week, and see you again in a week's time. Okay. Lots of love, many blessings to everybody. Bye.